It's been quite a while since I've made any kind of accessibility related video, and there's a reason for that. From a black background, two teal canes crossing behind a pink atom flicker on in neon light. To the right, white words stack vertically, blind over matter. The words and logo fade to black. I'm definitely feeling a burnout specific to accessibility right now, and today, not scripted or really thought out at all, I want to talk about it because I think that in the blind internet space, there's almost a fear of mentioning burnout, because I think as disabled people, we feel like if we admit defeat on something that people will assume that we're not capable. And whether that's for professional reasons, personal reasons, I think there's this need that we all have to just kind of work through it, and you just deal with it and you make it work more and more and more because you have to, and there's no time for yourself, there's no time for whatever you're going through, and there's certainly no time for you to be, not happy with the status quo. But I'm definitely feeling that, and today I wanted to speak about accessibility related burnout. No idea if that's an actual term or not, but we're going with it. So for those who may not know, I've been a direct support professional for almost exactly a year, and my job has a lot of features within the scope of my position that are not accessible to me via the technology and skill set that I have. And this includes some really important elements of my job, such as reading the paperwork for the clients I serve, looking at their schedules and calendars for days off, that sort of thing, as well as doing a lot of the paperwork required to be a direct support professional. And although my company has been accommodating in that we have some systems in place that make them navigable, sort of. The problem is that a lot of that is not due to them making things more accessible. There's a lot of, well, don't worry about this, or do it in this really convoluted way that technically works, but nobody accounts for the extra cost, and only one person at that job has ever checked in with me really about that in the way that tells me that that person understands the toll that this takes on me. As an example, most of my non-disabled coworkers have a system for entering the time cards for the clients we work with, and it takes them probably 3 or 4 clicks to, select the person, select the job. They can live punch, so the person's in at 8:32 and out at 9:37. That's all kind of noted by the software, and you're good to go. Because I need to use a screen reader, first of all, I have to use a version of this software that very few people in the building use. And so if anything goes wrong, or if I have questions, there's only a few people that I can ask questions to. So that's like the baseline we're working with, is that I'm probably among, I'll be generous and call it 10% of the people in my building use this version of the software, okay? So I'm already in a group of 10% of a workforce. Then, instead of easily clicking through each of those things, I have to navigate them by using menus with my screen reader. Now, first of all, before anyone gets on me, this works, okay? It does function, and I am able to complete the time cards for the clients I serve, so I can complete my job. However, where for a non-disabled person, it might take them, we'll call it 5 clicks, right? To select the person, select the job, select the in and the out time, and hit an enter button, right? So we'll call that 5 steps. Now, for me, I have to do several things using a system of nested menus and buttons and things like that. So I'm going to try to describe this just so you not understand how to do my job, but so you understand the steps that are taken. So I have to first choose to navigate to a table. I then enter that table, navigate to the person I want to enter time for, check a checkbox, right, that says that's the person, okay? Then I have to navigate out of that table and over to a separate set of menus that allow me to select, the place where the job is, the job, and enter the time in and out. So I can select the first few items, and then I select each item, and I have to go back to a menu. So I might do menu, select the job. Menu, select a subcategory for that job. Menu. Then I have to navigate to a category called text fields, so I can type, when the person started and when they stopped and that sort of thing. Okay, so I text fields, I type a thing, then I go back to the text fields menu, then I type a thing, then I usually review everything, right? I want to make sure I can't look it over, so I have to listen to each of those things back at me. And then I navigate to the bottom where there's a button where I can submit that time card. Now, the reason I bring this specific point, the reason that I'm going into as much detail as I am here, is that system probably takes me on average about 2 minutes for every entry in a person's time card. And each person that I keep time cards for has a kind of a morning shift, a lunch break, and an afternoon shift, and that's assuming that we haven't switched them into a different job or that they, don't go into a meeting or something like that. And so on those days, then they have even more entries. And so what I'm saying all of this to say is that this process takes me significantly longer than my non-disabled counterparts, and that's just a reality of doing my job, right? That is the accessibility system that we have that does function, that allows me to do my work. But every person takes me about 4 times as long, if not a little more, than my non-disabled sighted peers, coworkers. I don't know what I was going to say counterparts, but all of this to say is that is one system, right? So entering time cards, that's one thing. Every other thing that I do at this job, whether it's checking my email, reading through paperwork, navigating our training where we do like competency tests and things like that, every single one of those systems has a similar level of friction and, adverse steps between me and completing that task. I do not say all of this because I want a pity party. I say this because as a disabled person, these are the things I do every single day that most people probably don't understand how much extra time and effort that takes. Throw on top of that the fact that we've had a lot of different staff in my work area who all have different organizational systems, ways of thinking about things, ways of remembering things, and I'm trying to support, the clients I work with, but also support the staff to the degree that I'm able, and I do my best, but sometimes mistakes are made, sometimes things don't get caught. And I'm not directly in trouble, like per my job, for any of these things, but they happen, and they've been happening more frequently lately. And what's infuriating about this is that if I had an accessible system that was more fluent for me to use, I could take some of that time and energy that I have to use doing all these extra things, and I could be better at my job. And I've tried to articulate this the best that I can, but I've been working there for long enough now that the initial period of quote unquote figuring things out, the honeymoon phase of a new job has passed. And there is a point at which, to me, it's not that I'm accepting defeat, but I'm accepting the fact that this job is only going to be as accessible as it's going to be. And I've done a lot of extra things on the clock, during the same time anyone else would work to make my job more accessible, including hand brailing signs for spaces and work areas in our building, advocating for safety, like high textured safety tape on the floor in our production areas in our warehouse, as well as serving on our accessibility committee that we have in order to facilitate staff trainings to help us be more accessible. So I'm doing a lot on regular company time to do something above and beyond to make my space of work more accessible for myself and for the people that we serve every day, because I work with adults who are also disabled. Now, not all of them have the same disabilities as me, but I do my best to kind of provide a middle-of-the-road approach that allows us to make things safer and more, efficient and all of that to say, I can't do that anymore. Not to that level. I'm not being paid more for doing these extra things and just doing my everyday job when I have also like struggles, outside of work that we're not going to have a car shortly. I'm trying to figure out if I have a way to remedy that right now. My wife and I have been really working through some tough things with fixing up our house and that kind of thing. And all of that to say, I think that there is a frowning upon of using the term burnout or thinking of the concept of burnout when it comes to accessibility. And even though I'm literally in the process of starting my own business in order to make places and spaces and ideas more accessible, I'm more excited about that because it means I could actually get paid for the time and the effort that I'm putting into making those things more accessible. And then out of that comes stronger connection in hopefully my community and beyond. And I think I'm still in the process of putting a lot of things together for that business. I had a phone call last week to set up a bank account, so I'm working on the final stages of that. I am working on a website with the graphic designer that I've worked with previously, is also a website designer and someone who's able to navigate that a lot better than I am. And so that's in the works. And my hope, instead of just kind of leaving it like, oh, I'm burned out and tired, which I am both. I am a lot of both. I actually took next week Friday as well as the Monday after off work just so I have a couple days to like sit at home and just maybe chill out a little bit. But I want to turn these into my business, and I'm trying really hard to conceptualize the fact that I cannot be the only one who feels this. And I know that I have friends and I have people on this channel who understand these ideas, but to not have that same understanding in places where I need it, i.e. my workplace, is something that's really hard to explain to people without sounding like I can't do my job. And at other places I've worked, that's led to inaccessibility and burnout, and being articulate about those things has led to me losing jobs. And I think it's time that we have conversation, an earnest conversation, about the fact that accessibility burnout is real. And that by acknowledging it, we can actually make things better. Let's design systems with accessibility first, rather than with accessibility as an afterthought. Let's design the things that we do every single day in conjunction with people who may have alternate needs for completing that task. It's not really that much to ask, but it's really, really hard to find. And it's something that we need to do better. So I hope this made sense. This was kind of all over the place. I just wanted to put this down here. There are almost 400 of you that have checked out this madness over the last few years. I think we're 3 away. So if you want to see more content like this, I have other things that I'd like to talk about, and I will get to those as well. But I really appreciate all of the recent support on the channel from a couple of you who have popped up that are also blind and visually impaired. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts specifically on any of this in the comments below. But please, and I think this is really pertinent here, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.